Howdy, Immortalium here, and today I'm going to be reviewing the 1988 OVA Appleseed. Now, before I start discussing this particular OVA, I believe it's important to discuss my familiarity with the Appleseed franchise. Now, it's worth noting that I have never actually read Shirow Masamune's Appleseed manga, but I have actually seen various anime incarnations of Appleseed, such as this OVA, such as the 2004 CGI film Appleseed, such as Appleseed Ex Machina, and Appleseed 13. I have not seen Appleseed Alpha. Appleseed Alpha's art style is quite off-putting to me, so if you guys actually like Appleseed Alpha, I would be interested to hear that in the comments below. But regardless, I do believe that this Appleseed OVA was my introduction to the Appleseed franchise. And of course the question is, as always, is Appleseed any good? And that's what I'm going to be discussing today. So let's get started. So what is the story of Appleseed? Appleseed is set in a post-apocalyptic world in which World War III has occurred, which has done incredible damage. Amongst this devastation, a new city called Olympus has been established, which seeks to be a paradise on Earth. And something that's happened is new forms of humans called bioroids, although in this movie it is referred to as biodroids, have been established. These are humans who have been created, and their task is to oversee society. They control a lot of positions in government, etc., etc. And the film actually opens up with a woman killing herself, and it quickly turns out to be a memory of a guy called Karen, who was struggling with his new life in Olympus. And soon after that, we are introduced to our main characters, who will be main characters throughout the entirety of the Appleseed franchise, Duna Newt and Briarios. And both Duna Newt and Briarios have been rescued from the apocalyptic world by a bioroid, or biodroid, called Hitomi. And as a threat looms over this city, it is up to Dunan and Briarios to ultimately save it. And that is how the story begins. And with regards to the actual story of Appleseed itself, from what I've heard, this Appleseed OVA is an anime original story. It is not an adaptation of the actual manga itself, and it basically just takes the characters and the setting and develops its own thing. I've certainly heard of people being disappointed by that aspect. In my personal opinion though, if I had read the manga, I would like the OVA to be a completely new story featuring the same characters. So from that perspective, I understand why they made that choice. But when it comes to the actual story itself, it is a little bit messy. While the core theme of whether or not Olympus is in fact a paradise, which is something that we're going to be hearing a lot throughout the Appleseed franchise, is explored quite well in this OVA. There are actually quite a few character motivations that are quite poorly executed, in particular the main villain, who's basically just your cliche bad guy. And ultimately the story itself would merely rank as okay, in my opinion. It serves its purpose well enough, but it is very, very flawed. Now with regards to the animation, now the animation for this was actually done by Gainax, which, if you are unfamiliar with the name Gainax, they are the ones who did Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water, Neon Genesis Evangelion, Gurren Lagann, etc., etc. They're very well respected anime studio, or at the very least they used to be. And having heard that Gainax did the animation for this movie, I was quite interested to see what they would bring to the table. And to be honest, it's actually quite a mixed bag. On one hand, there are actually some really well animated action sequences, which I think are really well done. But on the other hand, we do see the characters go off model on occasion. And when it comes to scenes outside of these action sequences, the animation itself is actually surprisingly average. So while I wouldn't say it is badly animated, I would say that it is a surprisingly average showing from Gainax. And literally the only saving graces when it comes to the animation in general are those action sequences, which are surprisingly well done. With regards to the music, there isn't too much to say about it. It served its purpose and that's it. There was no track that stood out to me as being particularly good, but on the other hand, nothing seemed particularly aggravating. It merely serves its purpose, and that's all it does. Now we get to a very interesting aspect of this, and that is the voice acting. Now the voice acting here is going to actually require me to explain a bit of the release which I usually do separately. So this release that I have was released by Manga Entertainment, who are now known as Funimation UK. And we have both an English dub option and a Japanese option. And something that's going to stand out to a lot of people when they are listening to this English dub is the amount of swearing that is present here in a surprisingly large quantity.
It really gets on my tits that you wouldn't see us face to face.
And the reason for that is that this is an unfortunate victim of a process called 15ing. Now, 15ing was basically Manga Entertainment's method of getting anime releases that wouldn't normally be rated 15s up to the 15s rating, because they believed that that would draw more people to watch the movie. And the way they did that was to introduce a large amount of swearing and cursing into the English dub. So while the voice performances themselves are okay, I think a lot of people will find the incessant cursing distracting. And hoping to avoid that, I actually watched this recently in Japanese, and there we come across a second major issue, and that is that this release has what's called dub titles. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with dub titles, it's where the subtitles present on a release are not a subtitle translation of the Japanese audio. Instead, it is a subtitle track of the English dub. So as you might imagine, that is a very disappointing scenario. It's very clear that there were quite a bit of changes made with the English dub, and all of these changes are present in the subtitles. So when watching the Japanese track, there are actual sequences where the characters won't say anything, but subtitles pop up anyway, because in the English dub they were speaking at that point. So from that perspective, really disappointing. With regards to the other aspects of this release, there isn't too much to say, except that there is an audio commentary here from Jonathan Clements, who is a very informative man, and if you're interested in the mediums of animation and manga, it's well worth checking out his works. And he is joined by Larissa Murray, who voiced Doonan in the English dub. And it is a commentary track that is quite worth listening to. So that is a pretty good extra, but that's the only extra of note in this release. So in conclusion, what are my thoughts on the Appleseed OVA from 1988? I would say that it is quite average. And while it certainly does an okay job of introducing us to this world, to some of these concepts, as well as that central theme of whether or not Olympus is in fact a paradise, there's a fair bit of sloppy storytelling in this film. The animation itself only shines in the action sequences, and of course the fact that the English dub is 15'd while the subtitles are dub titles also detracts a lot from this particular release. So if you're an Appleseed completionist, of course you're going to want to pick up and watch this OVA, but for the rest of you, I would only recommend it if you can find it relatively cheap. Otherwise, there is a wide variety of other Appleseed media that is probably worth your time more. So that was my review of the 1988 OVA Appleseed. Of course, I want to hear your thoughts on this OVA. Have you seen this OVA? If you did you like it? Did you not like it? What are your reasons for liking it or disliking it? Have you read the original Appleseed manga? If you have, how does this compare? And of course, if you have any additional information about Appleseed, about OVAs, about Shiro Masamune, please leave them in the comments below. And of course, if you want to support the channel, I would encourage you to use my Amazon and Right Stuff affiliate links in the description below. When you purchase an anime or manga through those affiliate links, not only are you supporting me, not only are you supporting the channel, but you're also supporting the anime and manga industry. So I'd highly encourage you to purchase your anime and manga through those affiliate links. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye bye.